Welcome to the CCFR Radio Podcast, your source for news, updates, and stories from the CCFR.
Hey everybody, welcome to this bonus episode of the CCFR Radio Podcast. It's not going to have a number because I'm not going to screw up all the numbers coming after this. So it's just your bonus episode. And the reason why Wilson and I had to get together to do this is because Canada is burning down. Right?
Well, there is a massive dumpster fire here in the nation's capital. Things are not going well. Well, I guess it depends how you look at it, really.
We're having a contest for biggest understatement. Things are not going well. Things could be better.
Yeah, it's a little crazy here in Ottawa. So, yeah, the government's on fire. Everything's burning up. And, Justin Trudeau's nowhere to be found. He's hiding somewhere.
Yeah, just like during COVID, right? He's in the cottage. So anyway, the reason why we are bringing you an extra episode is just there's so much going on, and there's a lot of new news as it applies to the gun bans and the buyback and all the rest of that stuff. But before we get started, I just want to say this is not a regular episode, so I'm not going to show the ads or whatever. I just want to mention that Bullseye North, Vortex Canada, Sask Rivers chapter of Safari Club International, and 𝐂𝐂𝐿𝐿 Inc., those four companies have been supporting the CCFR podcast since forever. So I just want to give them a shout out. This is a bonus, but I just want to give them a shout out for all the help that they give the CCFR. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. Now we got to cover a bunch of things. What I have for you today is Wilson and I are going to have a chat. Then I've got a guest, Frank Nardi from, I'm not going to say the whole name because I'm absolutely useless in French, but CRAFM. It's a range outside of Montreal, correct?
Yes, it's Centre Recreational des Armes de Feu de Montréal.
You're useless at French also.
I am also useless in French, yes. Yeah. But I did better than you.
Yes, you did.
You called it CRAFM.
Credit where credit is due.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, Frank's going to come on. You won't believe the outrageous ridiculousness of the buyback that the government is rolling out, and I'm bringing a guy that's actually involved in it to talk to you about it. So it's going to be pretty cool. All right. You and I have a couple of things we want to talk about and cover just before we get to Christmas. The first thing is the CBC does this piece on the retail buyback. And It's so atrocious. I mean, all of this fighting about the CBC, them always standing back. It's like, what? Why is everybody so, you mad, bro? Why are you mad? Don't cut our funding. And they pull stuff like this. So anyway, I'm just going to play a little clip and you can check it out and we'll talk about it after. Check this out.
If you look at this wall here,
this room in West Winkle's gun shop has become a sort of museum. Stacks of assault weapons still in their boxes, collecting dust. Paid inventory, banned from sale for almost 5 years. But even as the federal government prepares to finally start buying back those guns, there's a new development. The quiet addition of assault weapon parts to the program.
Kind of joke called the Mr.
It's already sure to rise as the list of banned weapons has grown. And that estimate never included parts. 𝐥𝐞𝐠𝐚𝐥 has been tracking the assault weapons ban for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
So as you can see, my major complaint with all this is this guy uses the term assault weapons. He doesn't call them assault style weapons. He doesn't call them centerfire semi-automatics. He doesn't even just call them firearms, assault weapons. And he says it multiple times. He never used the new government term once. It's just, It's wild.
Yeah, I've noticed that quite a bit actually in commentary by different media and, leftist Twitter. I've seen that where they're just dropping the word style. We know full well that there's no such thing as assault style firearms. But regardless of that, the government has deemed that, that term. They've coined it. They are using it in their material. They're calling them ASFs. And you've got media, especially from the CBC, dropping that word style altogether so that they can just call them assault weapons, right?
Well, and Paulie Sissevia does it all the time.
Yes.
I don't think it's too much to ask for people just to be honest and for us to have an honest conversation. I think I probably said this 9 years ago when we did the first video for the CCFR. It's like, if your argument holds water, if you have a valid argument, you shouldn't have to spread literal disinformation. You shouldn't have to be so manipulative and lie to people and try to make things worse than they are or something different. So anyway, just CBC, these people can't help themselves. They just can't stop themselves from doing it. They're just like, we have to put our finger on the scale. You're like, don't do that anymore. They're like, we're not. And then they're like, little smile appears and their finger goes with their, they can't stop themselves.
No, they can't. And then they wonder why people get so upset and call for them to be defunded. Well, this is why.
Yeah.
It's literal disinformation.
Yeah. They're pumping, they are a disinformation outlet, basically. While they say it's everyone else that's spreading disinformation and you need the CBC to get accurate information, so don't cut our funding.
Yeah.
Like, just, man, nobody is capable of just sitting down and solving a problem in this country. It's wild. So, and this guy, this Jonathan Gatehouse is his name. Like, it doesn't even, it's funny because he's just fully confident. It's like, yeah, these assault weapons were banned in 1977 in Canada, bud. You haven't heard that before? What a great investigator he is, hey?
Well, and he goes unchecked, right?
Yeah.
It's his interview. It's his story. So there's nobody there to say, wait a minute, actually, you've got that a little bit wrong. He's not checked up on that at all. So he's just free to spread his disinformation.
Yeah, these people are appalling. Anyway, The reason why we're bringing this up too is the government has decided they're gonna include firearm parts for all of these newly prohibited firearms to be part of the buyback, at least for retailers too. That's going to balloon the costs out of control.
Oh boy, like way out of control. And I don't know how they can get away with doing it for retailers, but not doing it for individuals. Not that I think they'll ever actually get around to doing any of this confiscation program for individuals, but they would have to grant that same thing. And oh man, that would balloon it out of control, even worse than we could imagine.
Well, it's funny because they're committing themselves to something like, I look at myself and I'm like, I have 5 optics. I have 4, high-end flashlights, right? Weapon lights. I have spare parts for I probably have, I don't know, $2,000, it's probably $4,000 worth of just, extra stuff, accessories. Are you going to buy that? And I'm like, I'm a nobody, right? Like, are you going to buy all this stuff from the now 1 million people that are affected by these bans? Like, this is insane.
Well, they will have to. But I think why they can just say, yeah, we'll include that stuff. I think that, I've said all along, the retailer portion is fairly easy. I do consider it a very different part than the individual portion because they're willing participants. They've been sitting on unsellable inventory and paying storage and insurance. We've been through this a million times. So I look at that differently, and it's easy to do that part because they've got the import records, they've got inventory lists. It's very easy to do. Coming to the individuals is going to be near impossible. I've said it right from the beginning on that as well. So I think it's easy to just say, yeah, we'll do that, because they know they're never going to get around to us. So, yeah, that's what I think.
Well, and again, it's all cynical because these people are going to be gone at the earliest in March sometime, at the latest in October. They're not going to collect a single gun from individuals. And they know this. I just want to stress this. They know full well. Or maybe Justin Trudeau doesn't. I mean, the guy's delusional. That, I think, is, the jury is in. The verdict has been reached. He's completely and absolutely delusional. He probably thinks that he can just ignore the next election like he's ignoring the dumpster fire that is all around him right now. And he may crown himself king or something. I don't know. But in all reality, not one gun is going to be collected from individuals.
No, I don't think they will either. So. And that's why, I think they want to be able to tout that they've done something and they've collected X amount of firearms or whatever. So I think at this point, they're just, retailers, whatever. They're going along to get them to participate so that they can say they've actually, made progress on this program. So, whatever.
And let's not forget when Dominic LeBlanc, it's funny because they have him in there as the serious, the straight man, right? The serious guy, the adult in the room. And he is a BS or just as bad as any of the other people. It's all, they're all actors. It's just really amazing. So he's like, oh, we've collected thousands of firearms. Like, that's ridiculous. You haven't collected thousands of firearms. You haven't even gotten buy-in on the price list yet, man. You haven't collected anything.
All they've got, if they've got anything at all, is a little bit of inventory from the stores that did close down that had unsellable stuff. And they surely didn't buy them back because that was before the program. So that's just some confiscated stuff from retailers that, went out of business. So, yeah, they're not being honest about any of that. And then he says he even saw a picture of a firearm that was destroyed,
Oh, yeah. But it's classified. The photo's classified.
Yes, of course.
Anyway, so with all of this stuff, they're spiraling this buyback into, like, they'll never even be able to marshal enough. Pretend that they won the next election, they won a majority. They could never even scrape together enough money to do this. And there was an article in the National Post from one of the people that work at the Canadian Taxpayer Federation, 𝐥𝐞𝐠𝐚𝐥, and he did actually a really great article in the National Post about this.
Yeah, it was a really balanced piece, and he had some quotes there from law enforcement. It sort of opened up saying, all the credible experts have told Trudeau that this isn't going to work, and Trudeau knows it, and it goes on about the cost to taxpayers because, of course, that's their number one concern is the Canadian Taxpayer Federation. But, when you're talking about that we're a year into this program, not a single firearm has been confiscated, like actually confiscated yet. And they've already spent $100 million. You can well imagine how badly this is going to balloon out of control. It will be in the billions if they were to ever actually do it, which I don't think so.
Well, just for the sake of kicking it around, if they ever finished it, I bet you it would be $10 billion by the time it's done.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
I would believe that in a second.
Yeah.
And, and it's interesting. Again, I go back to the fact that none of this is even reality. And I know I didn't have this on the list of stuff for us to cover, but it's very interesting to me. I always use the word interesting when I don't want to say the actual real word that I want to, that my brain's telling me to say. It's just very interesting, Polly's behavior. They're running around trying to provide cover for the Liberals now. I just saw a tweet actually earlier this morning where they're like, oh, this is absolutely about public safety and this is so great. And it always takes a really long time for firearm-related regulations to have an effect on public safety. Gun violence was actually going up in Stephen Harper's last year. Did you see that tweet?
No.
Oh, it was hilarious. And I'm like, and last year is 2015, right? 2014 was the safest Canada has ever been in the history of data collection for StatsCan. Okay, it was the safest, those were the lowest numbers we had ever experienced as a country. And it pitched up in 2015, for sure. But
it's been going up ever since.
Well, it pitched up slightly, but if you look at those graphs, they always do that, right? They always go up and down, but you'll see a trend going in a certain direction. But of course, the Liberals come in after 2015. They let all the criminals know, hey, don't worry. We're not going to do nothing. You guys just do all the crime and chaos you want. And and all you need to do is give us you stubbed your toe when you were a kid and you're off the hook. Don't worry. And then we'll legislate it in Bill C5 and C75 too. We're going to put our money where our mouths are as far as crime and chaos is concerned. And you've seen it skyrocket to the most dangerous that Canada has ever been in recorded history. And and this is almost mind-boggling. They're running around providing cover for the Liberals while they have how many people have been killed as a result of all this, and they have no problem with it. They're literally running and providing cover for them so that the Liberals continue to do exactly what they've been doing. It's diabolical, man.
Well, it is. And I think, when you've got police forces begging for, tough on crime policies and begging for resources and community groups begging for resources. And I did see one tweet from Polly where they said, how people are complaining about the cost of this confiscation program and how much they're spending on this instead of allocating those scarce resources to combating actual crime. And they're like, well, how much is it worth to not become the US? And of course, they quoted some American stats. And it's wild to me because, there are things that we could do to make our country safer. And we could spend, a quarter of the amount of money they're spending on this and put the scanners at the border that could intercept illegal guns, drugs, human trafficking, all kinds of things. They never advocate for any of that stuff. It's purely on gun bans against legal owners. And you're right. I wonder how many lives have been lost because we've focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah. That stuff it's not a joke. Like, I don't say any of that stuff lightly. And I don't say it to be like, oh, there are political adversaries, so I'm just going to throw poop at them. Like, yeah, that is not what we're saying here. Like, this is serious stuff. And this is exactly what they've been up to. It's, I don't know, like, that's why it's frustrating. Any honest, objective observer should look at this and go, okay, well, one group is trying to get measures implemented that actually help, that reduce firearm-related violence and violence in general. And then one group is like, violence be damned. I just want licensed gun owners to feel the wrath. I want them to feel my revenge. And I don't care if regular crime and chaos goes on forever and it continues to accelerate. That is no problem. It's this group in particular, the contempt they have for people they've never met that would have the audacity of getting a firearms license and maintaining that. It's just really, it's astounding.
Yeah, it is. We are in definite weird times. It's got to turn around.
Anyway.
It absolutely has to.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry for bringing that up, but I was just like, man, I saw that and I'm like, hi, this is upside down world stuff. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. They ignore all of that. We put up the videos of the violent home invasions and all the crazy stuff that's happening in this country, all across the country. They never comment on any of that. Now they just complain about our guns and focus solely on gun owners. It's wrong.
Yep, it is not a problem. So anyway, all right. Next thing. So the budget was released. Well, the fiscal update was released, and the Liberals were supposed to, be within the guardrails of a $40 billion deficit. Now, before we even move on, don't forget. Just consider this: when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, we experienced during 2008 the global financial collapse, right? Mm-hmm. And the United States printed what was something ridiculous, right? Like $2 trillion, or I don't know, I forget what it was, right? But the TARP, right? The TARP program. And Stephen Harper was such an astute economist. Despite all of this, he ran a deficit of $30 billion. The entire financial system of the earth collapsed, and trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars evaporated. And he ran a $30 billion deficit. That was the biggest deficit that he had ever run. And the Liberals just this year want to run a $62 billion deficit when they promised $40 billion. People are desensitized to these numbers. Like, this is huge. This is a full-on arson attack to the economy. And then they actually tweeted, hey, inflation was down last month in November. Hey, we're nailing it over here. It's like, I don't know whether everybody is on drugs over at the social media wing of the Liberal Party, but included in this crazy budget was $600 million over 3 years for the buyback. Like, what is going on there?
Well, the fall economic statement was supposed to be delivered by former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, but of course, her and Trudeau got in a fight last Friday. He told her she was getting fired, and yet still expected her to present the statement on Monday in the House of Commons. So she swung back on that. But $600 million over 3 years for the buyback program. So, I think that sounds like a lot of money to me, but not really when you work it out. That's about $200 million a year over 3 years. First of all, that tells you right away they will not have this done and completed by October of 2025. Otherwise, they wouldn't be budgeting years into the future for it, right? So that's a guarantee that the amnesty has to be extended. And secondly, $200 million a year wouldn't be enough, even after 3 years. That's still not enough to even carry it out before they added a bunch of guns to it December 5th. So they have not budgeted the proper amount of money, foreshadowing into the next 3 years to get it done. So it's just further evidence that they're not serious about getting it done. And it's just a line item in a budget.
Yeah, just a little bit more detail. The buyback for individuals, that's the mountain of all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And that buyback is going to cost anywhere from, I don't know, $2 to $7 billion, depending on who you believe. And we talked about that already, like, especially if you had parts, I mean, it could be $7, $8, $10 billion.
Yeah, and they keep expanding the list. So
yeah, and they were like, oh, don't worry, we've got another list coming in February, and they're going to add SKSs, almost certainly add SKSs to that, which is probably, I don't know, 500,000 of those in Canada alone, just on that rifle, right? And a lot of them on Indigenous reserves. So we'll see if they can pry those guns out of their hands as well, but which would be interesting. But if you think about it, if let's just say it would cost $2 billion, like super conservative estimate, well, they budgeted 600 over 3 years. So if you were to roll this out, they're rolling this out right now, apparently. So let's say they rolled this thing out in, I don't know, in June of this coming year. Again, this is just a thought exercise, just for fun. If they rolled it out in June, they have to give people at least 6 months, if not a year, to comply, because some people are traveling, some people are having chemotherapy for cancer. There's all kinds of reasons why you can't respond right away and start mailing guns in or handing them in or whatever. Mm-hmm. So how can you do a $2 billion project in a year where you have $200 million budgeted? Like, none of this is serious. None of this has any connection to reality. This is just total, the rantings of a crazy person that is in a lot of trouble, basically, is what this budget was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I even heard on the radio just before we hopped on here, I was working down in the new podcast studio and I was watching CPAC, and there was a Liberal minister, I think Marcy Yen or whatever her name is. And she was talking about how I think there's $50 million allocated for women's organizations to combat gender-based violence. And I just find that interesting, because you're going to give it to these organizations instead of building shelters or things that women really need. But yeah, I think it's just they've blown the budget so badly. They're, it's not slightly over the guardrail. It's like over by 50%. Like it's blown wide open. And I don't know. I don't think they'll last until October anyways.
No, I don't think they are. And speaking of which, well, Jagmeet Singh, it's funny. There's a few things going on. We're going to just talk about Canada Post in a minute, but Jagmeet Singh, he's the least credible person in the country. Like, yes. we have an area in Vancouver called the Downtown East Side, and it's like a zombie apocalypse there, right? Like, everybody's bent over, on fentanyl, ODing on fentanyl, all this stuff, right? I would take a promise from one of these guys before I would believe a promise from Jagmeet Singh. Like, that's how little him as an individual and his word is worth. Like, he's proven that over and over. I don't know why he continues to do it. Well, I guess we're going to get to why, and I think most people already know why. But he keeps saying, like, oh, the agreement's ripped up. Don't believe what you hear. The agreement's ripped up. All options are on the table. And he comes out. He said, I don't know, whatever it was, right? Like a week and a half ago, just before the gun ban, he's like, this is my new red line, right? My new red line is, if the government, if Trudeau interferes with the Canada Post strike, that's it, non-confidence. This is the red line. Like, he said that. And I'm like, oh, I guess we'll see, because there's no way that they're not going to interfere. And then like a week later, this is how the Liberals are, right? They're like, oh yeah, whatever, Jagmeet, here's a cookie, go run after that. Or, just go, just scram out of here. And, and then maybe we'll get you to, get a favor from you later or something. But he says that was a red line. They ordered Canada Post back to work. And now he's like, now that's really it.
Yeah.
Come like the first week of March, that's it. I'm voting non-confidence. Like, well, why do you have to wait? Why can't you do that today? Why can't you do it on January the 27th when you guys get back? And why is that, Ms. Wilson?
Well, because we know that he's waiting for his pension. And it's, I would think this was some sort of Twitter joke, or, everybody's always beating up on Jagmeet for it. But you had Peter Julian on Power and Politics explicitly say the end of February, beginning of March, that's when they're going to vote non-confidence in the government. Blatantly saying it. And people are putting the clip out on Twitter, or X, I guess it's called. And it's so blatantly obvious to everybody. It's like that joke wasn't a joke at all. It's actually true. Like, he's so shallow. And we can't put it all on Jagmeet. Every single NDP MP who lets this guy, their leader, act like this has to wear that same guilt and shame for how their party leader acts. I'm talking to people like, McGregor and, I don't know how they can let him act that way and bring them down. They got to wear it, as well as all the failures of the Liberals that they've been carrying water for. So, yeah, they all deserve each other.
It's unbelievable. Like, Peter Julian is one of the worst. Like, I don't want to rant and rave about people like this, but what a snake. Like, he lies with such ease. He lies like Trudeau, like as a reflex. And I've got him on video lying. And I'm like, man, these people, they're just not normal people. They're not like regular people. They don't have the parts, like the parts of their personality that make them above, animals, right? There's a difference between animals and people. And I like to think that we're kind of a noble species. But some people just don't have those same parts as people. And so you look at Trudeau or Peter Julian or Jagmeet Singh or what's that other lunatic with the NDP? He's resigning now after he's,
Charlie Angus.
Charlie Angus. My God, man. I mean, I'm like, what is going on with these people? Like, where do they find these people?
Yeah.
It's really, really,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's really discouraging, to be honest with you. Anyway, I don't go on and on about that, but it's just so funny. We figured, you and I were talking all day, and so was everybody, right? Everybody that's involved in politics yesterday was just talking all day long. It's like, is he going to resign? He has to. He has no choice. Like, literally, the government is in flames. The whole system is in flames. He's got to do something. What does he do? What does Justin Trudeau do? Nothing. He goes to
he went to a fundraiser last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, $1,700 a plate fundraiser, and said a speech, that it's had a difficult day or something. Like, he's like that meme with the puppy, drinking coffee and everything's on fire. Yeah. This is fine.
Yeah. The good news is, well, a couple of things. Canada Post is back. So I'm sure they got a 3-week backlog of all the stuff that, all of their postal distribution centers and post offices full of stuff that have been sitting there for, 6 weeks. So they'll have to get through that backlog, but at least hopefully we'll get back to normal and we can be shipping stuff out of the store and you guys will get your stuff and there'll be affordable shipping and whatnot. But yeah, they're back again.
Yeah, that is great. I mean, they've been gone for almost a month and it did cause a huge backlog. I know there's parcels that I've got personally, stuck in the mail now for a month because they were on their way out. And then, of course, we're also not receiving things that we would receive from clubs and other things like that. So it is great to have the mail back. I don't have any opinion on their dispute with their union, but in any event, it should take a couple weeks to clear sort of the backlog. Like, we didn't even attempt to ship through Canada Post today on their first day back. But yeah, within a couple weeks, things should be back to normal. And orders are going out. It's not that they're not going out, but yeah, we're having to ship UPS, unfortunately, and it's they'll only take so many, and it's a very complicated system. So
yeah, very expensive.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
Yeah, really expensive.
Yeah.
But anyway, and the other good news is, as I mentioned before, between 1 and 3 months, we should have a decision from the Federal Court of Appeals, which would be great. It would be really great to have a win and have this OIC declared illegal. And I think I was talking to someone in an interview just now, actually, right before we started recording this. And I said the 3 scenarios there, I'm not sure I really painted an accurate picture before. I just wanted to mention this before I bring Frank on and before we wind up, is we can possibly win this case, which would be great. And the OIC would be as if it never existed. We could possibly lose, but if we can get leave to go to the Supreme Court of Canada, we will. If not, then we lose. It is what it is. But even if we lose, our political solution is going to cover us anyway. Like, we're not losing any guns, right? So that's still, even if it's bad news, it's still good news. And then if we win, but the court suspends operation of the decision, that's the part I'm not sure whether I mentioned before. So sometimes the court can say, hey, government, you did something you weren't supposed to do. I'm ruling against you, but I'm not going to undermine what you were trying to do. I'm going to give you 6 months or a year to do this the right way, which is to pass legislation. Okay, so you lost, but I'm just holding things the way that they are. All of our firearms would no longer be prohibited, but all of the conditions would stay the same until after an election, of course. But the good news with that is the Liberals are never getting back in power. It's going to be a decade at least 8 years before they ever get close to getting in power again, number one. And number two, even if they ran it right to October, they cannot pass legislation to fix this mistake. We are going to win one way or another. So that is the good news. That's your Christmas present, gun owners.
Thank you. All I want for Christmas is my AR-15 back.
Thank you, Santa. So anyway, I did want to share that with you just to make sure. All right. That's the update. This time for real, we are gone until, second week in January for reals this time.
For reals. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
You guys have a great Christmas.
Yes, everyone. So thanks, Tracy, for that update. And I'm going to bring Frank Nardi on. All right, via Skype, we've got my friend Frank Nardi from CRAFM, which is a gun store and shooting range in the West End of Montreal. How are you, Frank?
Very well, considering the latest news, but we're doing okay, Rod. Thank you for asking. Hope you are as well.
Yeah, I'm doing okay, I guess. Whatever, we're doing the best that we can. So Absolutely. You gave me a text this morning, and I gave you a call, and you have some information on a bit of the disaster that's happening when it comes to the retail buyback of these newly prohibited firearms. So why don't you just give us a rundown on what's going on?
Well, quite simple. The government has already allocated an amount that you're going to be getting per firearm manufacturer model. Most of those are acceptable, but there are certain cases which fall into my category, the higher end models, in particular the F1s and the JP rifles. They're offering us like ridiculously low amounts, while they're worth maybe 10 times the amount that they're offering us.
Yeah, well, that's crazy. I had a look at the list, and these are, I'm familiar with F1, just for those of you that aren't familiar, F1s are extremely high-end AR-15s that are, the receivers are skeletonized. They're super, super high-end ARs for competition, high-end competition only. These are $4,000 or $5,000 rifles, like off the shelf, minus anything that you're going to do to them. And they were offering you what kind of money for them?
$500.
Well,
I'm not sure if you heard me right. I said 500.
Yeah.
And that's in Canadian dollars.
Yeah. And that's them in their mind doing justice. That's fair to them, apparently, I guess.
Well, yes, but there's also, it gets worse a little bit, Ron. The issue is that if I wanna contest that, I need to contact appraisers from either from the Canadian Personal Property Appraisers Group, or the International Society of Appraisers, or l'Ordre des évaluateurs agréés du Québec, if you're in Quebec. We need 2 evaluations, not 1. And these people are not very easy to get a hold of, nor are they very interested. In fact, one of these called me back and said, "Hey, look, we're going to be contacting the government to have our name removed from there because we are not equipped for this. We're not insured for this. This is definitely not up our alley, and we do not want to be involved with this. So this is what we have to deal with on top of everything else."
Well, that's interesting. So the government puts these companies' names on this list, and it seems like they never checked with these companies.
Yeah, I mean, companies, I don't know if they're groups or associations or some, yes, but they're definitely entities that represent, that are, that the government gives them accreditation for them to perform this act. But not, I mean, one of them has already told us, look, we're not doing it, so forget it. We have found a few people. They will be calling us back, but nothing yet.
Well, if you have to have this appraisal done, are you going to have to pay for it, or is the government going to cover the fees?
No, we have to pay for the appraisals, the both of them. So and the government will choose the lesser of the two.
So if I understand this correctly, the government has a bunch of experts. I think it's actually the CSAAA that's been helping them with it, and they probably have other experts as well. They know, like, for somebody like me to know what an F1 is, they know an F1 rifle is worth $4,000, $5,000. They put down a price of $500. They give that to you and say, here's your deal. And then they're saying, well, and if you don't like it, you can find 2 appraisers, have them appraise it, pay the fees, and maybe we'll give you a fair price after that. Does that sound like what's happening?
Yes, you're 90% right. Where the 10% that that not that you're missing is, you don't have access to that information, but I do. Once they receive the appraisal reports, and then again they will take the lower of the two for compensation review. The lowest appraised value you've obtained from your firearm must be at least 50% higher than that set amount offered by the program, but must not exceed $75,000 or 3 times the set compensation amount. So in other words, in this case here, 3 times 500 is 1,500. So the max they would be able to give me is $1,500.
So, which is less than half of what you paid on your invoice.
That's right. Yes.
So
I'm waiting also for a call back. They've opened up several cases, and I'm still waiting for a call back.
So how do they expect small business to not only sit on these firearms for half a decade after they promised they would roll out this thing? Well, there's even more, malevolent stuff going on than that, but sit on this inventory for half a decade. Then finally, when they're like, we're going to pay for it, we'll give you we're going to offer you it's a lot less than half. We'll offer you $500 for a $5,000 firearm, and we'll give you, at best, $1,500. So you can take it or be in unauthorized possession of prohibited firearm. I guess that's your choice.
Something like that.
Just absolutely outrageous,
Yeah. And to make matters worse, myself and along with all other dealers, obviously, stocked up for the Christmas holidays, and we had promotions running. I was speaking to a dealer earlier this morning, and he said he got, he got $40,000, $50,000 worth of rifles delivered 2 days before, and now he's stuck with all this stuff.
Yeah, and it just in the last ban that happened just over a week ago.
Correct. Oh,
correct.
Yeah. I mean, same thing happened to us.
Well, yeah.
So as if business wasn't bad enough the way it was, this is definitely not helping. I can tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely outrageous. I mean, I don't know. The people that we're dealing with there, they just must think that this is funny. Like, they just play with people's lives like they're just toss them away. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, it's actually quite frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, if any of this was done in good faith, I would imagine, and I think I've said this before, but if I was in charge, I'd be like, okay, just send me all of your invoices for all these guns.
That would make it so much easier.
Yeah, send me your invoices. We'll give you whatever's there, plus 10% for screwing you over for half a decade. And that's it. We'll send you the boxes, pack them in there, or we'll send somebody to get them. This is the retail buyback, not a buyback from 1 million individuals like they think that they're going to conduct. And then everyone's made whole, at least, if you can even accept this whole thing on its face, but at least that would be the right way to do it. And they can't bring themselves to do that. That's the part that kind of bothers me.
Does that surprise you from the Liberals?
It does not surprise me. But anyway,
I mean, we speak, I wouldn't say on a regular basis, but we do have a lot in common, and we are in the same industry, so we both know how we feel about this present government.
Yeah.
Really,
really some. Well, they're getting what they deserve right now. The whole thing is burning down around them, and Trudeau sitting on a chair. Everything's fine. But anyway, well, Frank, I really appreciate you coming on and letting us know kind of what's going on here, and your the name of your business in French. Tell us what that is, because if anyone wants to support your business and go see you guys, drop by and see you guys in the West End of Montreal, they can.
It's Centre Récréatif d'Armes à Feu de Montréal. People know us as CRAFM, but the English version would be Montreal Firearms Recreational Center. And again, Rod, thank you for having me, and I want to take this note and wish you and everyone else a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And at the same time, I just would like to reach out to everyone and say, please support your local gun shops. We need all the help you can give us.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, thanks for coming on, Frank, and we'll get you back on and get an update soon.
Thank you very much, Rod. Again, my best to you and everyone else in your team.
That's pretty remarkable, right? But don't forget the positive stuff. We're going to win this, like 98% chance, right? There's always a chance that something could go sideways, but we're going to win this, right? So, these guys are out of time. Jagmeet might just get his pension and pull the plug in March. They're done, right? This will probably, every aspect of this will be rolled back completely. That's the assumption that we're going on, and we're going to hold people to their word because they promised us. Wouldn't it be refreshing if people in politics actually promised you something and then delivered like a normal person off the street would? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a naive idealist. But anyway, we're going to run the clock out. These people are done. They have no credibility. They have no time. They're going to lose an election in March. Worst case scenario in October. They don't have enough time to pass legislation. They might even lose in court. And there's no time to roll out a gun buyback for individuals. You're not going to lose your guns. So anyway, that's the good news. So wipe these people from your mind over Christmas, over the holidays. Like I said before, get some rest. Operation Pitchfork is going to be commenced in the latter part of January. So we're going to need you. We're going to need your energy for that. We will be working on that between here and there, and I can't wait to roll out some stuff for you there. Anyway, thanks for listening to this extra episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Take care, everyone. Have a great holiday, and we will see you on January the 9th in the next episode. Take care.